All right, Ignite. Who's out there? Welcome to Ignite for our first live broadcast. It's an exciting time. Just kind of checking things out right now to see who's out there. I hope you can come join us. It should be live. Anybody there? All right. Hey, so I'm going to kind of assume people are going to log in as they come. If you're there, say something into the we're just checking things out. How we doing? I see 3 people are in there. Welcome. Thanks for joining. All right. So just to kind of review some things while people are logging in, every Saturday night until this quarantine is lifted, we're going to be live on YouTube at 7 p.m. every Saturday night. So you can come here to our channel, log in. If you are logged in as your own name, then you can comment things there in the side. And I see Ava's there and Daniel's there. Glad to have you guys. We'll do this every Saturday live, and then it'll be recorded. So if for some reason you'd be able to come back and watch it later. We'll broadcast each Saturday here in this YouTube platform. And then after I have a chance to share, or one of our other leaders has a chance to share, we're going to shift to a different platform, which is called Zoom. Zoom is designed for like video conference calls, and probably many of your parents have been on these this week to be able to telecommute. But it allows you to click a link, and then we actually have a group video chat that I'll be able to manage. And so you'll be able to see each other's, assuming everybody's webcams are working. You'll be able to chat with each other in that context, either verbally or written. While I'm sharing in this YouTube platform, again, there's a place there on the side for you to comment. So please feel free to do that. If you've got friends that you see aren't in the room yet, text them, get their attention, say, hey, it's time, get online, because we'd love to have everybody here. I know it's fun to get together in person. I'm looking forward to the days when this virus is just beyond us and we're able to kind of return to life as normal. But between now and then, we will continue to do this just as a way to continue to advance in our own discipleship and in our own growth with the Lord, to hear what he's saying, to study his word together, but also to enjoy some interaction together. So again, if you're tuning in, we will do this every Saturday night at 7 o'clock. I'll go live on this YouTube channel, and we'll be able to be here. At the end of each of these, Heather will post a link into the live chat that gets you directly to the Zoom chat that we'll manage, so that everybody will be able to see each other and interact in that way. Now that some of you have started getting here, I kind of want to jump into what I feel like the Lord's reminded me of and pointed me towards, and I want to share it with you this week. So I think it's pretty obvious that we're in what I'm going to call epic times that are significant enough. It's a big enough deal that when you're old, you'll tell your kids about it. 20 years from now, you'll see a friend, you're like, hey, remember that time? And that time. And yeah, what'd you think? Like that distance learning. How many of y'all have been distance learning? If you've had to do distance learning this week, give us a shout out in the homeschoolers. Has school actually even been different, or are you just continuing with life as usual? This week and last week, like I feel like we're in a shift, and I'm going to call it epic. I don't know if it's going to rank high. Like, at my stage in life, this isn't yet the most epic thing I've encountered. For people that are my parents or my grandparents' age, It definitely wouldn't be competitive with the most epic thing in their life. But for some of you youth group members, this is probably the most epic thing global that has happened. We watched Australia's wildfires not too long ago. We've watched hurricanes. We've watched earthquakes, and there's things that we see that are of significant affect maybe one region or a group of people. But this last couple of weeks, it feels like we're on track, that this is a bigger thing, youth group, than most of you have faced in your lifetime. And so tonight, I've been kind of pressing in, hey, God, what do you want to say to somebody for whom this is their first massive, epic reality? Because we would love to address that and to move forward. So here's what he reminded me of. What he reminded me of is that though this is legitimately epic, it's wide-ranging, it's affecting tons of people. Like today, I drove through the Forum, which is a local outdoor shopping facility near here, kind of like a mall without interior. And there were 9 cars in the entire parking lot on a gorgeous spring Saturday. That's never happened in my lifetime. As I was driving around this week, I noticed there's literally no traffic in Atlanta. This is bizarre. The guy on the radio was like, did the little traffic report, and he's like, actually, everybody's moving fine. I don't know that we've ever had a weekday that we could have said that in Atlanta's history. This is epic, but it's not the first epic time, and we were warned it will be epic days. So in Matthew chapter 24, the disciples were asking, like, is this the end of days? Or like, when is the end coming? And they had these questions, and Jesus was teaching on the end. And what he said is, listen, there's countries are going to rise against countries, and there's going to be wars, and there's going to be rumors of wars, and there's going to be famines, and there's going to be earthquakes, and none of these are the end. And as I look at that passage, what I recognize is Jesus fully recognized there would be significant, epic, inconvenient, disastrous things in our world. And those are coming, and they're a part of the story, but they're not the end of the story. And he said, like, that's not it, folks. And I look at this and I recognize this is kind of one of those. Like, he didn't mention, and there'll be a virus. Like, he didn't go into that detail, but as I look at that list, I recognize we're in one of those. So what do we do? All right, so I don't know if you remember, there was once upon a time, there was a city called Pompeii. Pompeii is in Italy, which is probably why it came to this week, because Italy's been having, frankly, a harder week than I have. But the city of Pompeii sat next to a volcano, and when the volcano erupted back in about the 7th century, it buried the city in ash and in pumice. And when archaeologists dug it up later, they actually found people. Now, not people, but like the calcified remains of people that had been buried in all that volcanic ash and pumice and just pressed down. And we saw people in their normal surroundings, so in their homes or in their businesses. And it was kind of this snapshot of normal life on a very epic day. And I kind of want to go there with you. I want to talk about normal life on a really epic day. A whole bunch of our lives, a whole bunch of what we go through is just normal. It's kind of mundane. You make meals, and you do dishes, and you do laundry, and you go to school, and you go to work. A lot of days they're just normal days. And it's like, okay, schools, you're going to distance learning, and you can't gather at church, and like, you can't fly to Europe, or you certainly can't fly back. And there's this sort of shift towards epic. And in that shift towards epic, we're like, I don't know what to do anymore. What do I do now? What do I do now? And the answer is kind of subtle. And here's my suggestion. We should do sensible human things. We should not go buy 3 months worth of toilet paper. And if I just called you out, you're welcome. You probably needed it. You probably already knew, to be fair. We should do sensible things. Let me tell you how I got there. All right, so once upon a time, World War II. So jumping ahead, we started in the 7th century. Jumping ahead, World War II. Battle of Britain, Germany's bombing Britain. You probably encountered this maybe through The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when the Pevensies head out to the countryside to avoid the bombing that's going on in the city. That's line, written by C.S. Lewis. He wrote that while it was current. And in that day, he was asked the question, like, should we do, like, you're a university professor, should we do learning when there's a war? And World War II, I think, is a more epic, far-reaching, world-shaking thing than what we're in now. I hope, because like literally millions of people died in World War II. But in the midst of this epic, life-shifting thing, should we even go to university? And this question came to him as a university professor, and his reply was, you should do things that are sensible for humans. Because the reality is, if we don't study and we do win the war, we won't be ready to lead then. If we don't study and we sort of just hide away, we're going to not live well, and we're not going to be prepared for the life to come. And it doesn't reflect the kind of life that is a life of hope. And as Christians, as people seeking to believe in a God who, first of all, wasn't surprised by a virus, and second of all, is perfectly able to meet us away as well as he can when we gather, in this world, we should be a people of hope. And so we should do things like we would do if we had hope. So if you had hope, you'd probably serve your neighbor because you believe that it's valuable to serve your neighbor and you want to invest and believe in your neighbor's life. If you had hope, you'd probably do your distance learning because you want to invest in your education. If you had hope, you'd probably spend some time in the Word and you'd spend some time worshiping. And yes, isn't it great when we can gather together and the band leads us and the Spirit is, yes, but shouldn't I also go and click on that playlist and just sit and soak in God's presence for a while? Yeah. And you should cook some meals and then do the dishes. And you should, all the things we do in mundane life, we should do in epic times too. And we may do some additional things. We may dream about, okay, God, I'm investing in my future. Like, do you want me to address this? So there's a virus going on. So we're all thinking about healthcare, maybe a little more often than we do. God, do you want me in healthcare? Is that a good match for me? Should I study and prepare myself for a calling to do that? Should I invest in some, prepare myself better to provide for others? I'm looking at this online teaching reality and this distance learning and all these schools that are all shaken up. Do I want to, God, are you calling me to be innovative in education? Speaking of education, has anybody been to school in the last 5 days? Is there a school that's not shut down? Because I feel like all of them are shut down. But if I've missed one, I'd love to hear about it. I know my school's been on spring break, so we haven't been in school, but next week it's learning. Homeschoolers and co-ops, have those been shut down? I'm just curious, how has this affected you? All right, back to the story. So I'll look at what we're going on, and for me, this isn't the most epic thing in my life. So far, this is less influential than 9/11. Though to be fair, this is the next fewest planes that have been taken off from Atlanta since 9/11. Like, so it's pushing it, and it might get there, and I hope not, but it's possible. But I look at 9/11, there was this shift that happened as a country where suddenly loads of people were massively affected, and we started remembering. It was one of those, do you remember where you were? And everybody I know that was old enough during 9/11, like, we know exactly where we were and what we were doing. And I learned a lesson on 9/11, 2001, that I think is exactly today's message for us as Ignite. So on 9/11/01, I was in seminary. So shout out to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm in Mississippi. Dr. Gary Cockerell is my professor. I'm in Greek class. And we're in there and we're learning, we're translating, right? Translating uh, uh, New Testament Greek into English. And the librarian of the seminary comes in and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but something's going on and you guys need to see this." And he turns on the TV in the classroom. And instantly, there's this scene of one of the towers is smoking, and very shortly after, the second hits, and we watch as one of the towers falls. And during that time, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and something's happened at the Pentagon, and we're not sure if there's other planes. And in the midst of all of that confusion, Dr. Cockrell walks over and switches off the TV, and we all look at him. We're all gathered right there in the front watching, and he turns it off, and we look at him, and he's like, "Okay, guys, we're not in a position in Jackson, Mississippi to help them in New York. We're not in a position in Jackson, Mississippi to help them at the Pentagon. We don't really know what else is going on, but this is what I know. The world needs people who can rightly divide the word of truth. And y'all are here because you're called and you're studying to be able to share good news with people. You still need to be ready for that." And the reality is probably people are going to be more aware of their need for the good news because of this. You guys need to get equipped. In a little while, we'll have chapel and we'll go pray for everybody because we need to do that too. But for now, the best thing that we can do is exactly what you'd come here for. So open up your Bibles and let's start translating. And he took us back to Greek because we need not only on those epic moments, but at all times. And we needed to be ready to share good news when people were reminded that they're mortal. And as those planes hit buildings and people died, the whole country was reminded that we're mortal. And here we are with a disease going around that is reminding us as a world that we are mortal. I'm going to die one day. Hope not today, not anytime soon. But it would be dishonest of me to not remember that I'm mortal. I'm going to die one day. And so are you. And I don't wish that on anybody, but I don't have any control over it. And though we have a new disease that can kill us, diseases aren't new either. There have been diseases for a long time. And diseases that kill people, not new, definitely existed for a long time. And here we are. At some level, we're in an epic time and nothing has changed. People still need to know the love of God. People still need to encounter a God who loves them and leads them. People still need to know their call. People still need to seek his face. People still need community, which is why we're doing this crazy thing online in the first place, because we recognize we need community. At some level, we're in epic times and nothing's changed. So here's my question to you. What are you going to do that's normal? It's normal for people that love Jesus to serve others. So is there a neighbor where they're both trying to work through telecommuting, but they've got kids that are trying to do school? Could you go volunteer and help? Hey, I'll help your kid with their homework so you can do your job. Now, they may say, we don't want any extra germs. Just politely say, if you change your mind, let me know. Right? Because we're gracious and we're not weird. It might be that what you can do is start studying and preparing because you recognize God's calling you to something. It might be that this is the time for you to shape some of your own schedule, to spend time in the Word like you know you're supposed to. It might be that this is the time for you to play some music and record it and put it out on the internet. To play it on your back deck so your neighbors can hear it. The reality is there is a lot of normal stuff that we need to keep doing. You need to do some school because you've got a future to prepare for. You need to serve your neighbor because that's what people do who love Jesus. It might be that you have a neighbor that loses their job. This has been just a crushing week on a lot of people. A friend of mine, his company has already downsized to half their employment just since this started. So Is there something you can do for that neighbor? Maybe share some of that toilet paper that you bought too much of last week. The reality is, whatever it is, there is work that you can be doing now to prepare your future. In the epic, we can do some normal things to prepare us to be able to do special things in building the kingdom. So I'm going to pray here in a second, just kind of lead everybody in a time of prayer. If you've got something you would like me to pray into right now, you're welcome to stick it in the chat. I see people have been responding over there. But I'm going to pray, and I'm just going to ask that in the midst of this epic time that God gives us some clarity of what we're supposed to be doing with this time, this gift of time. Because it's the same gift we've had. We still have some time. We don't know how much. It's this time, but it's a really normal time. I mean, at some point, there's still dishes and laundry to do in everybody's house. But there's something that we can do that would help our world. Maybe a neighbor. We should think about that. All right, I'm going to lead us in prayer. If you've got something specific you want me to pray into, put it in the chat now. Let's pray, people. Jesus, I thank you that you meet us in epic times. You meet us when life is crazy, when life is not going right. You meet us in quarantine. God, I thank you that you meet us when we're lonely because we haven't seen our friends and we can't go out. God, I thank you that you meet us when there's changes in work, and some people, Lord, they've lost their jobs already. But you, God, are present. You don't leave us alone when life gets crazy. You leave us alone in the craziness of our world, but you walk with us and you meet us. And so, God, we just ask, as you are walking through this with us, is there something that you would like us to be about? Something you'd like us to be doing? Something that we haven't tried or haven't thought of? Is there a neighbor, God, right now that you could bring to mind so that we can go to them in our respective social distancing, ask for whatever it is that they need? Lord, would you give us some vision in the midst of this shift to be diligent in what you have given us, so that we don't procrastinate and social media and stare at our phones, but we also actively prepare for our future. God, would you renew in us a vision of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing and what we're called to, so that we can invest in that? For these young people, Lord, would you give them the diligence to do their distance learning and do it well, to do their homeschooling and do it well, to study as if they were studying to honor you? Lord, would you work in us to find solutions on how we can support families in our neighborhood, families who are losing jobs right now? God, would you give us wisdom to be able to serve them in this difficult time? Lord, I pray for those in our community that have health needs, who are struggling with pain, who are in need of your healing touch. And so, Lord, I think specifically of Josiah, whose back is hurting. Lord, I pray that you would heal that. Lord, I know that you are a God who heals because I have seen so many stories of all that you're doing. God, would you do that again? Lord, would you allow this to be a time as a community, that the Ignite Youth Group, the Church of Northlands, that we would grow during this epic, weird, displaced quarantine world? Would you help us to prepare and move forward? Would you let this be a time of coming alive? Would you let this be a time of reminding us of what's important? Would you let this be a time of remembering who you are and what you're doing? God, would you allow this to be a time to honor you well? So, Jesus, would you bless us? As a community, would you bless us? We love you, Jesus. Amen. All right, Ignite. I see a bunch of you are logged in. We're going to shift this. And as we do, you're going to want to keep up. So, Heather is going to put a link in the chat that will get you to a new software. It's called Zoom. We're going to use this because it allows you to talk back. It allows you to share video, so you can see others' videos. You can talk to each other. So it's the chat is fun, but this is more. And I want you to be able to do it. So look over here at the chat. Heather's going to post right now the link to the Zoom. And when she does, and you click it, if you've never opened Zoom before, you're going to have to click through some process. It's going to ask you if you want to download the little thing, and yes, you are. And do you want to use your computer speakers, or do you want to? It's going to ask questions. Just say yes till you get in there, and it'll allow us to quickly get a look at everybody, and it'll allow you guys to talk verbally because you've been listening to me, but there's more to do. So the Zoom is now it's now started, but it's probably going to get grumpy because I'm using the video for something else. All right. So Ignite. I am going to I'm going to have to close. I'm going to have to close this to be able to invite you guys all in. All right, there's the Zoom thing. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you guys shortly in the Zoom broadcast. Click that link, follow it, and I'll see you there shortly.